Hello, this is Wmpyr. Okay, so here to talk about the skill set for the Filipino martial arts of Escrima. Okay, so basically, I'm trying to make it very simple and go, what kind of skill sets are we working on? What exactly? What is this a skill of? Right? And it's very simple. It's the skill of the sword and the knife. And why do I say that? Eskrima is once again skill of the sword and knife. That is what you're practicing. Okay, and yeah, you could use that skill in different ways, which I'll get into in a moment. But it's sword and knife because there's a big influence historically from the Spanish conquistadors from Europe. It's called espada y daga, which basically is sword and dagger or sword and knife. Therefore, that has a big influence. That's what we do. That is what you're practicing. And where does the stick come in? Well, the stick comes in because the stick is the training tool for the sword. And more specifically, the sword is not any sword, it's a one-handed sword. Okay. And what is not commonly talked about is there's also a short stick that we train with. And that short stick, where does that come in? That comes in because it is the training tool for the knife. Just like the normal stick that we use is the training tool for the sword. Because if you train with the sword, it's too dangerous. That's why we train with sticks instead. But we imagine that it is the sword. Okay? And same with the knife. Maybe at a low level, you don't really do that. The stick is just a stick. But as you get better, you should be headed towards the blades, whether it's a sword or a knife, because that's our skill. Now we could add, that's basically four things, okay? So sword, our normal stick, knife, and a short stick. So that's four, but there's number five. Number five is empty hand. And I think the addition of empty hand is very clever, and it makes sense to me because you know how you hear a lot of people parrot this quote where they say the weapon is an extension of the body, right? And to me, I think that's misquoted. Like I don't think a lot of people that say that really understand what they're saying. But the way that I interpret that, right, is that you need to be able to fight with your body. Okay, it's not you rely on the sword or you rely on the knife or you rely on whatever weapon you have. Your body, whether it's footwork, positioning yourself, posture, balance, those are all very important in weapon fighting. And if you change the weapon into empty hand, those things still stay the same. So you still have the same balance, you still have the same footwork, you still have the same posture, you still have the same positioning. So all that needs to still stay the same. And therefore, the weapon just, we change weapons, but it really, that's what they're talking about. So in that case, the weapon truly is an extension of the body because the body is fighting. The body is, what making the weapon work, right? So that's why the empty hand part focuses more on the body mechanics, focuses on the body. Ninjutsu people would call it taijutsu, Tai means body. So that makes sense to me. And I believe that's why we put in the empty hand aspect. And I think that's something that we really need to not just say, oh, there's Panantuken. No, I think we should really focus on that it is an important part of Eskrima. Just my own personal 2 cents there. So the next thing is, okay, so what about, because like the way Eskrima was taught to me, it was taught to me as you could use whatever weapon that's around you. It doesn't even have to be a weapon. It could be like a cup, a baseball hat, a t-shirt. I'm going to use my cell phone for self-defense, okay? that Escrima has that ability to just grab everyday common items and turn it into a weapon. That's the way it was taught to me. Not everyone that does Escrima trains that, but I was trained that it is for improvised weapons as well. And so let's say like you want to use pepper spray or you want to use a flashlight, right? A tactical flashlight. Okay, cool. So if that's the case, right, where does that fit in to the sword and knife? Well, remember I said this, the sword is represented by the stick, which is a generic stick. Our Escrima sticks, it's not specific. Like, it doesn't have a handle. It doesn't have a guard. You know, nothing. It's just a simple stick, right? Very, very basic. And that's because you could find stuff that's close to a stick. To find something that's improvised like a sword is difficult because a sword is a very specific weapon. However, to base it off of the stick is much, much easier. So that's what we do. And remember, the stick is the training tool for the sword. So it all goes back to the sword, but improvised weapons wise, we go to the stick. Improvised weapons, smaller improvised weapons wise, we're going to the short stick. So in this case, a tactical flashlight or pepper spray or a tactical pen, something along those lines, is closer to a knife. So we're going to be using our knife skills for that. Okay, obviously those things don't cut, so that's why it's the short stick instead, right? So that is the idea there. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is for self-defense purposes. I know a lot of people really concerned about deployment. How fast can you take your weapon out? And for me, when I was studying, or I'm still studying, but when I'm studying Escrima, the Filipino martial arts, it really wasn't a concern. The speed aspect. And the way that I treat my self-defense skills is that I always assume that my opponent is stronger, more powerful, meaner, bigger, heavier, also faster. In other words, physically superior to me, more athletic, more agile. So I expect those things from my opponent. Why? Because those things I can't really control, Skill and strategy is where I want to battle my opponent in that way. And that's why, I practice skill and strategy. But as far as like size, there's only so much. I'm not going to grow taller, and I'm not putting on more muscles. So there's just nothing I can do about that. I'm not a big guy. Therefore, I just assume my opponent will be bigger. And same with speed, same with reflexes. Those things I can't really control. So there's only so much that I could have of that. And so I imagine that my opponent is going to have all of that. So speed is not a concern. For us, skill-wise, it's about being smooth. Smooth equals fast. So, but we do that for all of our skills, like whether it's Heaven 6 or angles of attack or takedowns or throws or joint locks. We want to be smooth at executing our techniques. Once again, smooth equals fast. But other than that, we don't really think about speed. Okay. Therefore, that type of how fast can I take out my weapon compared to the opponent, right? In a like a Wild Wild West draw type situation where you're having a duel, okay? That is definitely not a concern, okay? If anything, our speed is closer to fencing, where it's going to be like, do not telegraph, that kind of speed, okay, you're right? We practice that as part of our techniques, right? But as far as being able to access my weapon faster than this person could jump on me, that's not a game I play. I expect them to be faster if that's the case. It's like I'm going Can I reach my weapon first? Well, I just say, no, I can't. I just expect that. That way, I don't have to play that game because there's no guarantee. That is a dice roll, and I don't want to do dice rolls, okay? I don't want to take a chance. So I'll just assume they're faster. When do I take the weapon out? When I have time, when I know it's safe to do so. If there's any chance that I feel like I may not make it, then I don't worry about it. Why? Because we do have empty hand skills. So if there's a chance that they're going to beat me to my weapon, then I don't worry about the weapon and I just protect myself using an empty hand. And when I get the chance, I'll go to the weapon. So that's the way that I view it. And that's why our empty hand skills is important. Okay, that's another reason why it's so important. Now, for a while there on the internet many years ago, everyone was obsessed about fast deployment, especially with folding knives. And I was like, am I training incorrectly here? Am I on the wrong path? Is my thought process wrong? I thought about that. But then, I saw Professor Bram Frank's knife. His knives, the gunting knife, the lapu-lapu corto, the LLC knife, and all that. And I saw that even though the public is obsessed with like Emerson wave knives, where the wave is a little thing that sticks out and hooks on your pocket seam, and it deploys your folding knife automatically as if it were a switchblade, so it's very fast blade deployment. Everybody's obsessed with that. I saw Professor Bram Frank's knife, and his isn't that. His knife is like, you know what? Let's not worry about that. Don't worry about speed. Just take it out and use it closed. Then you don't have to worry about, is the blade going to come out fast enough? Use it closed. That made so much sense to me. And I believe it was no coincidence because his lineage is the same as my lineage. His teacher is my teacher's teacher. So then I was like, oh, okay, so then it's not just me. All right, and I felt good after that. So, that was also important for me. That we are not trying to play the speed game with somebody. All right. It just doesn't make sense for me to do that. All right. Just like I wouldn't want to play the power game with somebody in a self-defense situation or in any situation. I don't want to play the power game. See who's stronger. So I don't want to play who's faster either. Okay. So then, the next thing I would like to talk about is a lot of FMA people, Filipino martial arts people, cross-train in boxing, which is great, okay? So if you cross-train in boxing, and let's say you're going to use your tactical flashlight and you're holding it like this, you throw a jab, right? But then what we train in Filipino martial arts is we do angles of attack, which I told you guys, you make that into a flail type motion, or you could do heaven six type stuff. So if that's what you're doing, which one? Do you do boxing or do you do Filipino martial arts techniques? Which one, right? And that there's really no rule to that kind of stuff, how you want to do it. What is important is you have to develop a logic, okay? You have to develop some kind of system, and there has to be reasons why. And then in a real life situation, you try to make those reasons matter. You try to make that logic work and happen, okay? Not that it's not about right or wrong. You just try to make it happen, right? You enforce your will upon the opponent, and they're trying to do the same to you. So that's what it's about in a real life situation. So you got to develop the reasoning. Why boxing? Why Escrima techniques? Which one? When? Where? So my personal logic that I like to share with you guys, and I'm not saying I'm right. Once again, it's not about right or wrong. But I'm saying this helps me use both, and it's easy for me because it's simple. So I like to share that with you guys. And that is, boxing is primarily what I call occurs in medium range, primarily. And medium range is, from my Escrima, I learned that that's where I don't want to be. So if I'm in medium range, if I'm stuck in medium range, I'm trying to get out of there. Either go to close range or long range. But when I can't and I'm stuck in medium range, I'm using boxing. So I'll use the flashlight, throw jabs and crosses and uppercuts, and I'm trying to get out of there using boxing. Okay? Now, when I'm in long range or medium range, you have to understand that the logic is I want to be in long range for Escrima, okay? In a self-defense situation, I want to be in long range, without a doubt. When you compare the two, long range or medium range, I want to be in long range, okay? So medium range, I want to skip. But in order to be in long range, it's like I saw the bad guy, I was aware, and I saw them, and I was, preemptive, so I made sure they couldn't get close to me, or, I'm in a good spot if I'm in long range, okay? Or I'm able to use footwork, and I'm able to maintain distance, and I see their attacks coming, and I avoid it, I evade, and I create space. Okay, once again, I'm in a good spot. I'm doing very well, right? So that's my plan A. And when I'm doing plan A, that's when I'm doing Filipino martial arts for me, okay? So if I'm in long range, I'm doing Filipino martial arts. Things are going well. If I'm in medium range, that's when I'm doing boxing. And that means I'm not doing well because I don't want to be there, but I am. So that's my plan B. So that's how I see it. Plan A is Filipino martial arts. Plan B is boxing. If you ever see me on the ground, that's plan C. I'm doing grappling. And I really don't want to be there. But I have a plan C. That's what's important here. If you don't have a plan C and you are on the ground, well, good luck to you. But, so I have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. So I hope that makes sense. That's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.